of July. And welcome everyone here. To begin with, I see Brian is on the phone. He can start the meeting with the standard items and we'll move ahead. Brian?
Thank you, Bob. Happy to go through our remote meeting procedures one last time before we are in person in August. So again, we'll welcome everybody to the Montgomery County MUD number 60 Board of Directors meeting for Tuesday, July the 20th, 2021. As in prior meetings, I'll briefly go through our remote meeting procedures and then perform a roll call. So to begin with, need to remind everyone the meeting is being recorded as required by the Texas Open Meetings Act. Second, please remember to state your name before you speak, including the making of any motions. When you're not speaking, please be sure to mute your line. Third, we will continue the practice of having a roll call to vote on each motion. After a motion has been made and seconded, please wait until you hear your name called and then respond with a verbal aye, a nay, or an abstention. Finally, we need to identify each person who's joining the meeting remotely today so that we can accurately reflect the attendance in the minutes of the meeting. I will form a roll call for the board members, followed by staff and consultants. When you hear your name and your company called, please respond by indicating that you're present in the meeting. Likewise, if you need to leave the meeting before it adjourns, please announce that you're doing so before you disconnect. Once I've completed the roll call for directors, staff, and consultants, I'll ask for any members of the public to identify themselves for the record. So starting with the roll call for our board of directors, Bob Lux.
Present.
Mike Wise.
Present.
Richard Stromat.
Richard,
are you in the meeting?
You're
He
muted.
was on a while ago.
He's muted.
Oh,
Present.
Okay. Thank you, Richard. Betty Doherty. Is Betty in the meeting? Okay, I do not hear Betty. I'll mark her as absent initially. Sandra George.
here.
Okay, we do have a quorum of our board present, so we'll move on to District Woodlands Water Representatives. Jim Stinson.
Present.
Mike Mooney.
Present.
Maureen Bourgeois.
Here.
Shelley Lawson Kennedy.
Present.
Jeannie Scott.
Present.
Anyone else from Woodlands Water in the meeting? If not, we'll move on to San Jacinto River Authority staff. Ron Kelly.
Present.
Ed Shackelford.
Present.
Chris Meek.
Present.
Anyone else from the River Authority in the meeting today?
Yes, sir. Brett Rayleigh, San Jacinto River Authority.
Okay, anyone else from the River Authority?
Jamie Lewis, San Jacinto River Authority, and I have Haley Heaney here as well with me.
Okay. That covers everyone from the River Authority. We will move on to district consultants. Do we have any MUD 60 consultants in the meeting today? And moving on to members of the public. Do we have any members of the public present in the meeting? We need to identify you for the record as well.
Hey, folks, Mark Welch with David Weekly Homes.
Okay, this is Brian. Do we have any other members of the public present in the meeting?
Brian, Betty Daughtery joined.
Okay, thank you, Ed. Betty, are you on the line?
I am.
Okay. Anyone else that has not been called? I've heard some, sounds like logins or log out while we've been doing the roll call. Is there anyone else who's present in the meeting that has not yet been identified?
Brian, also Wayne Owen from the San Jacinto River Authority.
Okay. Maureen, does that cover everyone who appears to be logged into the meeting?
That is now everybody.
That is everyone?
Yes, it is.
Okay, all right. Thank you very much. Bob, I'll go ahead and turn it over to you to begin the agenda. Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. We will begin with the agenda item number 2, the opening invocation and pledge of allegiance. A moment of reflection. Heavenly Father, we come to you today as an assembled body. We humbly request that you guide us to provide a spirit of welcome, to engage in respectful dialogue with wisdom, kindness, and humility for the common good of those we represent. Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, liberty and justice for all. Texas flag pledge. Honor the Texas flag. I pledge allegiance to thee, Texas, one state, under God, one and indivisible. Thank you. Okay, there were, Mr. Welsh, do you care to make comments to the board?
Sure. I just wanted to give the board an update of our East Shore project. You may recall, we had an agreement for reimbursement after the construction was completed and showed up on the appraisal district's roll call. We're about 50% there right now. We have started 100% of the lots in our community and we are sold out. So just giving the board an update. It was very successful. And as you guys all know, the attraction of East Shore and the Woodlands in general was very, very successful for us. So that's just giving you an update. That's all.
Thank you, Mr. Welsh. It's much appreciated. And I know, as I can just assume as a developer, being 100% sold out before you even open the project is terrific. That's great. Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay. Are there any other members of the public who happens to have come on? Hearing none, we'll move to agenda. Pardon me?
All right, Dan Kokarsh with Howard Hughes Corporation has joined the meeting. Just an observer today. Hope everybody's
Hello, Mr. Colcourse.
doing
Welcome.
very, very well. How y'all doing?
Very well, thank you. And you? Good. We'll move to agenda item number 4, consider an act for adjustments to or relief from the specific charges imposed by the district. Mr. Mooney?
This is Mike. I have nothing for Mud 60 this month.
Thank you.
This is Jeannie and I don't have any either.
Thank you, Jeannie. Consent agenda. Do we have any questions regarding any of the items on the consent agenda? Hearing none, we'll proceed with a roll call vote. As to the acceptance, I guess you have to make a motion to approve. I'll make the motion to approve the consent agenda.
Second.
Thank you, Sandra. Thank you. Any further discussion? Roll call vote. Director Lux, aye. Director Wise?
Aye.
Director Stromat?
Aye.
Director Doherty?
Aye.
Director George?
Aye.
Thank you very much. Agenda item 10. Adopt a resolution casting votes for the MCAD special district candidate placed on a countywide ballot for the Board of the Montgomery County Appraisal District. And that was on an insert. There are 2 candidates. Do we have any a motion for the voting to support one or both of the candidates with our 10 votes?
I'm lost. Where are you?
It is agenda item number 10. I believe that's right. Yeah, that's right. We went through the consent agenda, and this is for the MCAD vote, and it was on an insert, Betty.
Oh, I'm looking at the wrong, yeah, I got the insert.
Okay. We have 10 votes. And as I understand it, Brian, correct me if I'm wrong, we can either vote all 10 votes for one candidate, or we can split them. Is that accurate?
This is Brian. That's correct. We did confirm that with the appraisal district this morning, that if a board did want to split their votes, they could, but I think the candidate of choice for the Woodlands MUDs was former MUD 47 Director Arthur Bredehoff.
That is, do we need to have a motion with and then a vote as to full support of candidate Bredehoff?
This is Brian. Yes, you would have a motion to consider adopting a resolution casting all of your votes in favor of your preferred candidate.
Thank you.
I would like to make a motion for Arthur.
Full support.
Correct, please.
Very good. Second for.
Second, Sandra George.
Thank you, Sandra. Further discussion? Hearing none. Roll call vote. Director Lux, aye. Director Wise.
Aye.
Director Stromat.
Aye.
Director Doherty.
Aye.
Director George.
Aye.
Thank you. So we will be casting all 10 votes for Arthur Bredehoff. Shelley, this needs to be filled out, signed, and turned into you, I assume? And I can do that this afternoon.
Yes, sir.
Thank you. Okay. Agenda item 10. Receive the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division report. And that is on pages 18 through 25 of our packets.
Good
Chris?
afternoon.
Leave that to
This
your
is Chris
department.
Beeks. If you have any questions on the operating report, I can definitely go through that and answer any questions you may have. While you're thinking, if you have any questions, if you don't have any questions as well, Brett Rayleigh is here. He has an item to talk about with y'all. So if you have any questions, I can answer those, or I can turn it over to Brett.
I just have a comment, and in going over the budget and everything, I have to acknowledge the good job that you're doing in keeping on budget in a very tough year. And let's hope that we can finish strong and stay within budget. Well done. I know you're tightening your belts as much as you possibly can.
Appreciate that.
Thank you. Sticky keys. Oops.
With no other questions, Brett, it's yours.
All right, thanks, Chris. As Chris said, this is Brett Rayleigh. I'm the Lake Conroe Division Manager for SJRA. I'm going to attempt to share my screen real quick as I have a presentation to share with you. It's very short, so don't worry about it. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
So this is with regards to the Bear Branch system, which, as you know, SJRA operates and maintains under contract with 5 Woodlands MUDs. And I just had a few things that I wanted to bring to your attention. It's mostly for informative purposes, and you'll see better in just a moment. We've got 2 projects in our, we typically do a 10-year look ahead in terms of projects that we have on the books that we have earmarked to accomplish. There's 2 that are in the current plan that are significant in terms of the potential dollar amount. One is a replacement of the soil cement. This is on the upstream face of the spillway at the Bear Branch Dam. As you can see on the picture on the left, it's very rough. There's some eroded portions. We've known since 2014, since we had an engineering consultant do a thorough study of this soil cement, that it would eventually need to be replaced. The results of a required engineering inspection that we had done this past year, the consultant came back and said, yes, you do have an issue and you need to address this within the next 3 to 5 years. So this is the reason why this project is included in our current plan and why it's included, where it's included to meet those recommendations from the consulting engineer that did the inspection. Another project that we have is what we call the spillway void investigation / project. During routine maintenance this past year, maintenance staff from the San Jacinto River Authority noticed a void, and you can see it highlighted with arrows and a circle in the bottom right in the spillway. Of course, we immediately contacted our dam safety consulting engineer. The first recommendation was to go ahead and fill this void with a flowable fill, which we did as promptly as we could. In the process of doing so, flowable fill began to exude in other places along and joints and other concrete joints between, say, flat surfaces and angled surfaces in the plunge pool of the spillway that you're seeing on the bottom right. So that prompted, the recommendation from the engineer to do further investigation. And so we engaged a materials testing company to do a ground penetrating radar study of the entire spillway, or as much of the spillway as they were able to do physically. And those results came back, first of all, somewhat inconclusive, and secondly, somewhat questionable. We obviously shared those results with our dam safety consulting engineer, and there were some generalizations drawn by the contractor that did the ground penetrating radar that just didn't add up with our consulting engineer. And I could go into detail if you have some questions, but needless to say, the consulting engineer recommended that we investigate this further. So you'll see in the next slide, when I show the full plan, that we've earmarked further investigation and potentially design of a repair in next fiscal year's budget. And so on this slide, you can see the full 10-year period from FY22 through FY31. Some of the items, for example, the Bear Branch Emergency Action Plan, that one will be determined. We earmark the money for those years because we try to do it on a 5-year increment. We earmark those, but when it comes down to it and the year comes, if there's not significant improvements that need to be made to the emergency action plan, for example, new inundation mapping or new breach scenario, a new breach investigation, then we may not have to spend that. We just earmarked it just in case we will have to significantly update the plan. Similarly, we're required by Texas Commission on Environmental Quality to do engineering inspections on 5-year intervals. So you can see that we've earmarked 2 within this 10-year plan to have those inspections performed. And then really the most important thing that I wanted to share with you today is what's highlighted in yellow, excuse me. And so those 2 projects that I just mentioned, we have gone ahead and we've gotten a rough estimate of what it may cost to do the soil cement replacement. And so we've earmarked those expenditures for fiscal years 24 and 25, with 24 being primarily engineering design and 25 being the construction and the different elements of engineering that go along with construction. The real unknown is the void repair. So you can see the $250,000 that I showed previously. that's earmarked for next fiscal year, that will be for further investigative work, what they call destructive and non-destructive. So they'll do more ground penetrating radar studies, and they will take some physical cores through the concrete and analyze the area beneath the concrete, and likely even use small cameras to look around inside these cores. These cores should be no smaller than 4 inches in diameter. So the $250,000 next year is to do further investigations, destructive and non-destructive, as well as begin design of the repairs should there be a significant repair project that's needed. The reason that you see FY 23, 4, and 5 left blank is that we really won't know the extent of design and or repairs until we've completed the work in FY 22. So we just wanted to get this on your radar, and so that you had an idea of what we are looking at for the next few years. And so in the bottom of the chart, we've made a recommendation. I don't know if that's the right word. We basically wanted to make you aware that these fairly large ticket items are on the horizon. And so we've made a recommendation of some reserves or escrow funds, or however you would do it in your MUD, to set aside these funds over the next 4 years to help pay for them, because on the high side, both projects combined could be on the order of $4.5 million. And so that's definitely, when you bracket it, that's the high side. But we wanted you to, adequately prepare for that, just in case that were the case. And so then on the rest of the chart, you can see the MUD 60 contributions. Of course, the FY 22 is contribution for these projects. That's your contribution, your 8% of the $250,000. And then the other years as well. And then so this is all project related. Those 4 projects that I mentioned, the 2 that I went into more detail on. This is the standard operating budget for next fiscal year. Let me see if I can hide this. This is the standard operating budget. So the total expense budget is $568,187. We are estimating that there will be $84,000 left over from the FY 21 budget, which will roll over to the FY 22 budget, making the required commitment by the 5 MUDs $483,769. So on my final slide, let's see. This shows, so the upper portion shows the commitment for operations and maintenance only by MUD for next fiscal year. So as you can see, for MUD 60, for the operation and maintenance, it's $38,803. Down below, we have what would be the combined amount of money that would be required to fulfill the commitment to the operations and maintenance budget. And if you decided to set aside those funds that we're recommending for the project side for FY 22. And so MUD 60 on the bottom chart, that's your that would be your combined outlay to cover operations and maintenance and to make those contributions in FY 22 to the 10-year project plan. So with that, I'll take any questions that you might have. That is basically the information that I wanted to share with you, just to get those 2 big projects on your radar, and so that you can take them into consideration as you go forward. That's all I had. I'll take questions.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley. I just have, I'm kind of curious, what was the contradiction between the ground penetrating radar contractor and the professional engineer?
There were, for one, the report that, and we can share these reports through Jim and Mike. Absolutely, we would be glad to do that. and as well as the opinion from the engineer. The report came back stating that a very large portion of the spillway contained voids of one size or another. Let me see if I can pull that back up for you.
Now, whose report was this, Mr. Rowley?
This was, I believe we had Terracon do the general engineering.
That's your
I mean,
professional. Okay.
Ground penetrating radar.
It was not the contractor. This was
the consulting engineer is Friesen Nichols.
Oh, Friesen Nichols. Okay.
And so on the picture on the bottom left, of course, part of it is just to identify different portions of the spillway. The emergency spillway being the large concrete surface that you see every time you drive by on Kirkendall. The purple on the upper part of the screen is the soil cement that we've been talking about replacing. And then down in the very bottom of the screen, left and right of the primary spillway is a flat area that's called the splash pad or apron. And then of course there's the center line of the service spillway and then the energy dissipation pool or plunge pool at the bottom. The report that came back from the ground penetrating radar stated that a large percentage of the area that you see in yellow contain voids, significant voids. And so when we started to analyze them, it physically would not be possible, according to our engineer, for the concrete as it's spec'd with the amount of rebar and the spacing and the details on the concrete to be able to span the width and length of some of the voids that were identified. It would sink, it would settle. And so the engineer looked at that and they just said, that's not even feasible. And so it immediately made them question the results. And one hypothesis that they have is that the ground penetrating radar contractor was interpreting sand layers, which are part of the design, as voids. And so that would be erroneous right there. So further investigation and hopefully more accurate interpretation is what is being recommended by our consultant going forward. Does that answer your question?
Yes, sir, it does. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Further questions, discussion?
I have a question.
Yes, Betty, please.
What's the level of risk that the dam could be, not secure?
At this point in time, we have in writing from our consulting engineer that they do not consider it a significant dam safety issue.
Mm-hmm.
But that being said, we certainly need to investigate further, to make a more accurate and stronger statement as to that fact. And the reason that we earmarked the amount of money that we did was for that case where it turns out that this is something that needs to be addressed and perhaps needs to be addressed sooner rather than later.
Mm-hmm.
I guess my next question is either a general manager or a Maureen question. Where would we provide from what fund would we provide these charges that are required for this public safety and prudent improvement?
Each year, when we prepare your budget, you have a line item for your contribution to the dam maintenance and operation.
Right.
And so it's each year, it's a line item on your budget. This year, if it's a larger number that you wanted to contribute, we would just, it would come from your operating reserves.
Okay. And we have sufficient operating reserves to cover this and others?
Well, we're just beginning to look at your budget. You'll get your first draft budget in August.
Thank you.
And it will be discussed at that time.
Thank you. Is there any action required on this, or is this information?
from the San Jacinto River Authority. It's purely informational.
Thank you, Mr. Rowley.
Yes, sir.
Well, I have another question, and that as I'm not looking at the slide now, but as I looked at the proportional shares that each MUD has to come up with, it looks like 47's got a $500,000 lick that they would have, and we've got, I don't see the slide now, but it was like 38,000 or 80,000, I don't remember. Is there any possibility that, I mean, that's the way all of our proportions look. They've always got the heaviest contribution. Any reason to be concerned about their reserves in terms of meeting, there you go, meeting obligations or potential resistance from anybody there? I mean, this seems to me, coming from a place where dams have failed, to be a fairly important issue, and that would be my concern. We're going to have trouble getting 47 on board, Jim?
Well, they have a contractual obligation with the San Jacinto River Authority for this operation, maintenance, and repair.
Uh-huh.
So it's well documented, the agreement is, and they have a duty to perform to that agreement standard.
Okay. Thanks.
Thank you. Chris, did you have anything else that you needed to report in your division report?
No, sir. Only if you have questions.
Thank you, sir. Any further questions for Mr. Meeks? Hearing none, we'll move on to agenda item number 12, which is the consider and act upon fiscal year 21-22 budget for the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division. Is there has the presentation which was provided on the Google Drive been able to be reviewed by the board members? And if so, do you have any questions regarding the budget or the any aspect of the budget?
Reviewed and no questions.
Thank you,
No
Richard.
questions.
No questions.
Very good. And I guess we would accept a motion to approve the 21-22 budget for the San Jacinto River Authority Woodlands Division.
Director Stromat, I'll make a motion.
Any second?
Sandra George, second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Director Lux, aye. Director Wise.
Aye.
Director Stromat.
Aye.
Director Doherty.
Aye.
Director George.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes. Move on to agenda item number 13. Consider.
Yes, yes. Did you rotate them? I did. I put the fold on the top and the word on the bottom.
Is there a fist fight broke out somewhere?
I think that's Richard's location in the hotel.
Okay.
Yes, I'm in a motel in Amarillo, and it's cleaning time.
Does that mean you're going to have to go? You're going to have to
No, they've worked around me. They're being terrifically cooperative.
Thank you. It was a little bit
Yes.
unusual. Okay, agenda item number 13, receive and act on information for retaining the Trinity River Authority water supply agreement. This information was also on the Google Drive. I hope it was able to be retrieved by everyone and reviewed. I believe that Mr. Shackelford will continue with this. Is that accurate?
That is correct. Thank you, Mr. Lux. Good afternoon, directors. I'm going to try and share my screen and hopefully it won't lock up on you. We made this presentation back in May to the trustees and all of the MUD meetings. And then I'll say we revisited this item at the trustee meeting last week, and the trustees asked that we reshare the information because there is an action that is being requested. So can you all see my screen?
Yeah.
Great. So we're talking about the Trinity River water supply option that the Shenandoah River Authority currently has. And to give you, come on, I'm hoping my screen's going to cooperate there. The basic issue is population growth in Montgomery County is continuing to grow at a pretty rapid pace. There is going to be, not presently, but there will be a need in the future for additional water supplies. Obviously, you've got to plan long-term for those water supplies because they're just not readily available. You can't go down to Walmart and buy 50,000 acre feet and have it ready for you when you need it. Currently, we have a contract for an water supply option with the Trinity River Authority for 50,000 acre feet per year of additional water supplies. The reason is back in 2013, the GRP Review Committee saw that under the municipal section of this particular slide that's in front of you, excuse me, the municipal category has significant growth in water demand starting from 2020 going all the way to 2070. And y'all have heard bits and pieces about the regional planning process, and it's a 50-year planning period. So if you notice under 2020 for municipal, there's 101,000 acre feet of water needed to meet the municipal demand in Montgomery County. Lake Conroe, to give you an equivalent, Lake Conroe will yield 100,000 acre feet from the lake. As you grow forward and assuming Lone Star will impose some sort of pumping restriction, say, hypothetically, let's say it's 100,000 acre feet. So between the lake and the groundwater, there's 200,000 acre feet available for water supply. So go out to the 2050 column and the total water demand for the county is right at 198,000 acre feet, call it 200,000. So basically anything beyond 2050, additional water supplies are needed. And that's where this 50,000 acre feet of water from the Trinity River Authority comes into play. So if you remember our presentation back in May, there was discussion about how that water would get to Lake Conroe, coming out of the north end of Lake Livingston into the north end of Lake Conroe. 50,000 acre feet, firm yield, and you see the different colored lines on the slide. And we've estimated that somewhere between $200 and $300 million would be needed to bring that water between the two lakes. And that would involve pump stations, pipelines, and canals. So coming back to present day, that's future, and that wouldn't occur until around 2050. So our 50,000 acre feet per year option contract was initiated in 2013. And we are currently paying $237,500 per year to retain that option. And to clarify, TRA will own the water rights. All we are doing is leasing. We would lease the water long-term. So there are some contractual obligations associated with this option contract that we have. by the end of this year, 2021, and that's why we're talking about this, to be able to, I'll say, retain the option or to continue on with the option, we would need to execute a service area agreement with the TRA. We would also need to initiate an interbasin transfer permit. The lawyers have estimated that that cost for the interbasin transfer permit is somewhere between $1 to $2 million. We also think it would take several legislative sessions to get this permit because it's not a normal thing to move water from one river basin to another. Come April of 2028, we have a deadline to convert the service area agreement into a water supply contract. And that water supply contract would basically be a reservation for the water, an additional reservation for that 50,000 acre feet. And you can see the number on the screen. It's roughly $1.5 million per year to reserve the water until we decide it's time to build the project and move the water into Montgomery County. So one of the questions that we got back in the beginning was,
1 o'clock roughly, but I don't know.
so what does this cost to us?
You bring it in.
And so if you'll look at the bottom of this slide, the potential increase to the GRP participants in the time period 2022 to 2027, it's roughly 10 cents per household, assuming a 10,000 gallon per month usage per household for that period of time, 10 cents per month per household. After beginning in 2028, the price goes to roughly 20 to 25 cents per household per month to pay for that $1.5 million per year reservation fee. And I mentioned a moment ago, this is a charge against all GRP or all customers. So there would be a cost to the raw water industrial customers, and there would be a cost to the people that are receiving surface water. And there's also a cost to the GRP participants that are still on groundwater, but because they're helping pay the cost of the GRP program, they're sharing in this expense. So for us, it's 80 participants plus our raw water customers. So I mentioned that we're trying to go, the goal is to go to our board no later than September and say, we've met with various entities, community leaders, and so on and so forth, to give them, our board, an idea of the support to either retain this water supply option or to release it. Back in May, when we made these presentations, if you recall, your board was supportive of the idea. All of the mud boards in the Woodlands were supportive. And we've talked to a lot of county elected officials. They've said they agree that it's the right thing to do. They don't have a financial stake in it, but we are visiting with our GRP participants. So that's the conversation. I'm happy to answer any questions regarding what you just heard.
Thank you, Ed. Are there any questions from the board members?
No questions from me.
Thank you.
I guess I've always got a question because I know the least about all of this stuff. But you did say that there was a legislative piece to this.
Yes, ma'am.
And so we have, as normal, have several sessions to get that presented and then move through the committee pipeline and so forth. Where's the blowback going to come from? What's the downside? Is that people over on the Livingston Lake side that would object to that? Is there work that needs to start immediately on that, or is it already started?
The blowback and blowback may not be the right phrase, but
Probably not.
I'll say the challenge is transferring water from one river basin to another.
Mhm.
There's been a lot of conversation over the years of trying to move Sabine River water into this area because of the demand, the population needs and the water demands, or even into Central Texas. And, you know, the basic conversation out of Southeast Texas, the Beaumont area, is we need the water here, but right now it's not being used. So it just takes time to get people on board with the idea of moving water around so that everybody is, I'll say, benefiting from it. Because right now, if it's not being used, it goes over the Livingston Dam, down the Trinity River and out to the bay. And there will be a need based on population growth in Montgomery County.
This is Mike Wise. Do we have any alternative to this? I mean, we're looking at a potential water shortage down the road significantly years out. And it seems like we're paying a lot of money for a good many years, et cetera, et cetera. Do we have any alternatives?
There are some alternatives that are in the Region H water plan that apply to the entire region. And some of it's more aggressive water conservation. There's even a proposal to do some aquifer storage where you're injecting treated or semi-treated water into the aquifer in hopes that you can reclaim it or later. But that's probably going to be expensive because you have electricity and pumping requirements to push water into a sand-filled aquifer here, and then you still have another round of electricity to get it out of the ground. And I don't think it hasn't been proven in this area yet. It's more successful in the hill country where you have limestone caverns like the Edwards Aquifer, where you can put it in and see a change in result the same day. Here you don't see it. Will there be other water strategies identified later? Possibly. But right now we have, this one is available and viable.
It sounds like you're saying, though, we could potentially put a lot of money to this over the years and it might not be approved. Am I seeing that correctly, or is that wrong?
I think it will be approved. It just takes time to get it through the legislature and through the TCQ to get it approved. These don't happen overnight.
Ed, I have a brief question.
Sure.
Does the Trinity have sufficient surpluses, or is our conservative approach wise because their surpluses are being contracted to other locations?
I'm going to give you a little more information that will help answer the question. Lake Livingston has a 1 million acre foot per year yield. City of Houston owns 750,000 of the 1 million acre feet. So TRA has 250,000 acre feet to sell, lease to whomever. I know Huntsville grabbed some of that. And we know that the City of Houston is trying to grab more water out of Livingston. Basically, they're on the hunt for more water from anywhere. And so if we were to let this 50,000 acre feet go, more than likely Houston would snap it up or contract it for it. One of the conversations in a prior MUD meeting was to try and trade some of Houston's water out of Lake Conroe for some of this water. And I've been thinking about it. The difference is Houston owns 2/3 of the water rights in Lake Conroe. This is leased water from TRA. And so the basic premise would be Houston would not give up their water rights to us, the 50,000 acre feet of water rights to us for leased water from TRA. They would rather own the water rights. That way they have control over it. So I think TRA is, they're business people just like we are. They're trying to sell their water and pay for infrastructure in their system that they've been paying for years. Other questions?
Hearing none, I guess I just have a comment that I think that if we are true custodians of the resources that we have legislation over and planning for the future of the county, well, we're duty bound to pursue this option as it currently appears to be the only option. And in the what I feel to be the common good and best interest of the future growth of Montgomery County and economic viability, that we should undertake this. If there are any further discussions or comments.
I agree with you, Bob.
Thank you, Sandra. Therefore, I would accept a motion to approve the joining in with the Trinity River Authority water supply agreement with the San Jacinto River Authority. Is that properly stated, Brian?
This is Brian. I believe so. Is there anything else you need with that motion, Ed?
I was thinking that maybe a motion to approve San Jacinto River Authority continuing to pursue the Trinity River water supply agreement might be maybe a little more appropriate.
Could I offer one slight
Yes,
change?
please, Ron.
Instead of approve, support. Because contractually, BUDs aren't approving anything. All you're doing is showing your support to
Yeah, we're having trouble hearing you, Ron.
Richard, can you mute your microphone?
Richard, can you mute your microphone?
Thank you. Ron, would you repeat that, please?
Sure. I would suggest instead of approve, use the word support, because the MUDs aren't contractually tying yourself to anything. All you're doing is showing our board that you support our board going forward with the process to secure this water at some future date. So you're really not contractually obligated to anything at this point.
Thank you for that clarification, Ron.
That means we're not paying for it, right?
Well,
not directly.
Not directly.
We are, though, aren't
You're the one that said you knew the least about all this stuff. I think you got a pretty good view of it.
As Ed pointed out, it would be included in the raw water rate, and the raw water rate for the Woodlands is in part in the GRP rate. So yeah, it would be pennies.
Yeah,
you would end up paying for it.
Thank you. And I'll make the motion.
Excellent. Thank you, Director Doherty.
Sandra George, I'll second.
Excellent. Thank you, Sandra. Roll call vote. Director Lux, aye. Director Wise.
Aye.
Director Stromat.
Aye.
Director Doherty.
Aye.
Director George.
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thank you all very much.
Moving on to agenda item number 14, consider and act upon appointing a stakeholder subcommittee member to participate in the SJRA engineering consultant meetings related to wastewater plant consolidation. This was outlined, the intent and the duties on page 26 of our meeting packet.
I would like to step up and volunteer my time. I have both time and availability to meet the schedule that Ed suggested in his presentation. So I welcome the board's advice.
Thank you. Are there any additional volunteers to be considered for this task force?
I think Richard is uniquely qualified to step up and do this, and I appreciate it.
I agree completely.
I do too, Betty. He's the one.
Thank you, Sandra. The action, I assume, would be making of a motion and appointing Richard as to be our representative on this stakeholder subcommittee. Motion, please.
So moved.
Second, please.
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Director Lux, aye. Director Wise.
Aye.
Director Stromat.
Aye.
Director Doherty.
Aye.
Director George.
Aye.
Thank you, and thank you, Richard. I know you'll do a wonderful job. Agenda item number 15, receive information from homeowners at numbers 3 and 7 East Horizon Ridge Place regarding property erosion. Mr. Mooney?
This is Mike. I did get a cost estimate from a contractor put together for the homeowners. I have sent that to them at the end of June. I suggested to them they also try to get with their engineer to solicit at least 1 or 2 more proposals just for comparison's sakes. I have not heard back from either one as to their success of doing that. I was only able to find one contractor willing to quote the job. It's between the 2 homeowners. It's right under 200, right under 20,000 for their portion. The portion that the district would be responsible for is, of course, on our side of the fence, outside their property, and ours is about $6,200 worth of work. Ours is kind of contingent. Our work is kind of contingent upon them completing their work. So the ball is in their court. I just don't know if that's a big enough ticket item that it might be a little steep for them to come up with that, because it's not really a 50-50 cost share. I think the one property owner is actually causing the other property owner's problem to exacerbate even worse than it is. So I don't know what their cost sharing would be. It wasn't priced that way. It was just a proposal for on property and off property. So that's kind of where it is. It is in their court, waiting for their response and waiting for their action.
Thank you very much, Mike. Any discussions or questions? Hearing none, agenda item 17, consider adoption of resolution concerning development district status for 2021 tax year.
This is Brian. So this resolution is similar to the one you considered last year. We talked last year about Senate Bill 2 and the impact that it had on the rollback calculations for districts. Historically, you had a 8% rollback calculation. You could generate up to 8% more in operation and maintenance revenue before you would potentially be subject to a rollback election. That changed in the last legislative session, and there was a new framework created as part of the legislature's overall effort to slow the increase in property tax burden on folks throughout the state. The new framework has a distinction now between what's considered a developing district and a developed district. So in order to determine whether or not you're a developed or a developing district depends on whether or not the district has sufficient water and sewer infrastructure necessary to serve up to 95% of the projected ultimate build out of the district's property. The engineer makes that determination on behalf of the district as to whether or not that 95% threshold has been crossed. For this district, we do work with LGA to make that determination. LGA is still working on those forms for the Woodlands district, so we will need to defer on this item for MUD 60 today, and then we'll have it carried forward to your agenda for next month. But that's the purpose of the resolution, similar to last year. And we do have to make this designation each year, since in theory, whether you're developed or developing could change from year to year. So this will be, as we talked about last year, an annual item going forward. But we will ask for deferral on that item today.
Thank you, Brian, for that clarification as to what this is. And I would hope that there would be, when LJA does come up with a recommendation, that there would be some written explanation of exactly what you had just stated, as well as their analysis whether or not we are a developed or a developing district. Thank you very much. Agenda
this is
item.
Brian. So Bob, just to kind of close that out. So we had a memo last year that talked about the implementation of SB2. Are you saying that you'd like that distributed again to the board this year, or just the spreadsheet that the engineer completes that confirms whether you're developed or developing?
It's not too much of a burden. I would think that getting both documents would be helpful to understand it better.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep.
Anybody else have an opinion on that?
I'd appreciate both documents.
Thank you. Agenda item number 18, receive the general manager's report. Mr. Stinson?
Thank you, sir. During the trustee meeting, we talked about at the request of a MUD 46 director, looking at the potential to implement some sort of a benefit program for those that were struggling to pay their water bills. City of Houston has an active program where customers can contribute a certain amount with their water bill. Huntsville has something similar to that. So I had told that director we would bring it up at the trustee meeting. But our attorney Brian Yates said that this cities certainly can easily do that, but MUD districts may face some challenges. So, and with his advice, we put that on pause for now, and we'll see if we want to pursue it any further at some other point. Also, I had received a request from a resident in MUD 46 to review the Ian McCard reports that were done back in the 70s for George Mitchell in the pre-stages of the Woodlands. And after reviewing those documents, I recommended with the resident that we post those on our website for MUD directors and others to look at. They're really pertinent to some of the discussions that are ongoing today regarding groundwater, regarding drainage. So I encourage you to take a look at those if you get some time. We did our discussions with TACUS continue regarding reimbursement for damages. We have five prime contractors working under TACUS that we have sent invoices to. One of those prime contractors failed to communicate with us, and I think TACUS felt like they were also having some problems with them. So TACUS has actually paid that damage invoice in full to the tune of about $35,000. We've still got about 250,000 outstanding that we're hoping TACUS is going to apply some pressure to these other primes for payment. We'll know more about that over the next week or so. In your packet, I think we have an update on HARC. Their subsidence monitoring recommendation for Montgomery County is complete. I know it's on their website, so we'll be utilizing that information as we move forward in discussions with Lone Star and others about how do we get subsidence monitoring locations established in Montgomery County to get a better picture of subsidence. Also, HARC has completed a term they call a story map or a storybook on groundwater and subsidence that the public can utilize to help get a better understanding of that complex topic. So we encourage you to take advantage of that website. We talked about the 2 poles that are causing concern in 2 neighborhoods, one around the Slash Pine Water Plant 1, the other around water wells. I think there's 2 water wells up owned by the River Authority at Woodlands Parkway in Kirkendall. I presented options for those 2 poles. One of those was relocation at a cost of well over $100,000 each. It was my information and direction from Brian Yates that if those were 2 poles were to be relocated, it would be at the cost of the MUD district where the poles are sitting and the residents that are requesting relocation. After some discussion, the trustees asked if I would come back with a potential cost sharing scenario that where other MUDs could participate in that. So that'll be discussed next month. The Spring Creek project, we've received notice that Half and Associates has been selected to lead that detention study upstream on Spring Creek that would benefit the Woodlands. And the American with Jobs plan, we did have a meeting with Kevin Brady's district director and expressed our desire to make sure that we were in the best position available to utilize funds from that should they become available. And the River Authority was with me. He understood our desire, reported that to the Washington, D.C. office. We've got what I would call a short list of lobbyists and consultants that we're looking at with SJRA. And we're going to have a follow-up meeting with the congressman attending in early August. And with that completes my report today.
Excellent report. Thank you. The agenda item 19, received the Woodlands Water Trustees report. A very comprehensive report has been prepared by either someone other than me. I wrote one out, and then I found this one. So it's General Manager Stinson touched on a number of points that were discussed. One thing that I would request each of the directors to do would be to review ADM 50, policy number ADM 50, the Code of Ethics, just so that there's no misunderstanding as to how we communicate ourselves with not only the press, but also our fellow citizens and what have you. It'd be a good review. If you do not have a copy, either contact me, I can get it, or contact Shelley, she can provide that to you. Consolidation, you got that. We talked about that. I sent everyone an update on the not only if you haven't received it yet, it's in your mailboxes, your email boxes, about the letter that was sent by Quadvest attorney Marvin Jones to the GMA 14 members. We have 2 more days, I believe. I believe it closes on the now 23rd to submit comments to Lone Star Groundwater Conservation District. as well as GMA 14. If you have not already done so, I would request that you visit Stop Our Sinking or obtain information from whatever source you have, and submit a letter to Lone Star Groundwater. And also, because Mr. Jones made the submission directly to the members of GMA 14, that you do that as well. And also ask friends, neighbors, and associates if they would also do it. Another item that I thought was of particular interest at the meeting was, as shown on page 40, Trustee McIntosh pointed out that wastewater treatment plant number 2 has never had odor levels that exceeded TCEQ standards. He would like to see the Con 10 between MUD 6 and the developer of Lakeside Cove. As you know, we're engaged in some significant financial expenses to correct this odor control. Now, odor control are a big problem, and they set the tone for what a utility is known for. And it's a knotty issue, but if there are others who have gotten us into this predicament, I think that Trustee McIntosh was right to try and recreate this this matter from the issuance of the Con 10. And General Manager Stinson said he was going to resurrect that document. I have nothing more to add other than that to what is already in that report. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to entertain them. Hearing none, we can move to item 20. Discuss matters to be placed on future agendas, which I might add will be in person, thankfully, next month. Do we have the items for placement on future agendas? Hearing none, I will accept a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved. Sandra George.
And I will second that. Thank you very much for your participation and attendance. See you in person next month.
Bye. Thank y'all.
Thank you.
Leave the meeting.